How do I use theater as a medium to recover from trauma? Theater is life. It's story. It's truth. It's love. The process of theater allows for me to exist within the fullness of my being, to expand past the limitations of what I have been forced to believe, and to move myself into the spaces that are warm, that are tender, that are nurturing, that are free.
This is the 21st century, and we need to redefine revolution. This planet needs a people's revolution.
Hello, Global Village. Welcome to Inner Character and Autoethnography of Trauma and Recovery in Black Womxn Theatre. My name is Dian Anitafrika, and I'm currently doing a PhD at London South Bank University, researching how Black women use theatre and performance as a medium of transformational healing. On today's episode, we are going to delve into some of the definitions and forms of different kinds of trauma.
Hello, I'm Akosua Amo-Adem, and I use theater as a medium to recover from trauma by authentically telling my story through the characters that I play on stage and create in my writing.
So, according to the Center for Anxiety Disorders, trauma can be defined as a psychological, emotional response to an event or an experience that is deeply distressing or disturbing. When loosely applied, this trauma definition can refer to something upsetting, such as being involved in an accident, having an illness or injury, losing a loved one, or going through a divorce. However, it can also encompass the far extreme and include experiences that are severely damaging, such as rape or torture. The Center for Anxiety Disorders continues to share that because events are viewed subjectively, this broad trauma definition is more of a guideline. Everyone processes a traumatic event differently because we all face them through the lens of prior experiences in our lives.
I use theater as a way to deal with trauma by relying heavily on the ritualized structure of theater, not only in the performing of it, but also in the writing process and the amount of time that it takes in the preparation to get on stage and the receiving and giving that happens between an audience and the person on stage. Ritual allows for many ways into, around, forward, backward, into a story, and allows for space and distance from the emotionality of the topic so that you can actually fully delve into the lessons that are learned from this lived experience.
When I turn to Gabor Mate, Mate's definition of trauma explains that trauma is a psychic wound that hardens you psychologically, that then interferes with your ability to grow and develop. It pains you, and now you're acting out of pain. I also consulted trauma practice in the UK to look at how, from their perspective, the different types of trauma can be categorized. And they talk about trauma one, which refers to single incident traumas which are unexpected and come out of the blue. They can be referred to as big T trauma, shock, or acute trauma. A condition related to big T trauma or type 1 trauma is post-traumatic stress disorder. And some of the examples they include are severe illness or injury, violent assault, sexual assault, traumatic loss, mugging or robbery, being a victim of or witness to violence, witnessing a terrorist attack, witnessing a natural disaster, a road accident, military combat incident, hospitalization, psychiatric hospitalization, childbirth, medical trauma, post-suicide attempt trauma, life-threatening illness or diagnosis.
I use theater as an orator. as a storyteller giving voice to my trauma, my inner child the opportunity to work through what has happened, and the adult me to break the cycle and heal the combination of generations, from my ancestors to me to my future children.
Trauma practice goes on to talk about type 2 trauma. Complex trauma describes trauma which may have been experienced as part of childhood or early stages of development. Repetitive trauma refers to trauma which has been repeated over a period of time and is often part of an interpersonal relationship where someone might feel trapped emotionally or physically. They may also feel as if they have been coerced or powerless to prevent the trauma. A condition related to type 2 trauma is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Some of the examples trauma practice includes are sibling abuse, childhood emotional abuse, domestic violence, emotional neglect and attachment trauma, abandonment, verbal abuse, coercion, domestic physical abuse, long-term misdiagnosis of a health problem, bullying at home, at school, or in a work setting, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical neglect, or overly strict upbringing, sometimes religious.
As a Black woman, history has always erased her story. And the only way for me as a Black woman, theater maker and storyteller to position and reclaim a sense of my being and those who look and sound like me is to make sure that I become the instigator, the narrator, the voice, and the storyteller of all the traumatic events that my people and myself have experienced through our time, not just personally, but traditionally, culturally, politically, economically, socially.
This is the 21st century, and we need to redefine revolution. This planet needs a people's revolution.